The Adirondack Park has thousands of lakes, and they vary enormously in their chemistry and ecology. As a result, they're just as variable in their sensitivity to pollution and human development. For the past 10 years, Ed McNeil and I have been working with colleagues of mine from the Carey Institute to understand why these lakes differ so much from one another. The answers lie in the nature of the watershed around each lake. The physical dimensions of the watershed are important, but even more important is the nature of the vegetation within the watershed, the forests along the slopes, the wetlands along the shores, and not just right adjacent to the lake, but all the way up into the distant reaches of the watershed. A few years ago, we developed a new method for looking at the relationships between watersheds and their lakes, but there was one enormous catch. We needed to be able to sample literally hundreds of lakes in the middle of each summer. The solution came in the form of a remarkable airplane built specifically for the research by Ed McNeil, an engineer and pilot and longtime Adirondack conservationist.
One of the fun things about this airplane is Charlie and I are able to get into really very small lakes, and that's important obviously for the water sampling that we're doing, but it's also just a lot of fun. And because of the safety of this airplane and the fact that it's a twin, we can fly relatively low over the canopy. Charlie gets to see the canopy up close and personal, and he's probably in 2 summers seen almost all of the park, which is really difficult if you think about it. If you tried to do that on the ground, it would probably take you many, many years to do.
There are literally thousands of lakes in the park, and they vary enormously in their chemistry. One of the main reasons for that variation is that they vary so much in the nature of the watershed. How much wetland, how much forest, how steep the slopes are, how thin the soils are. And in order to pick up any evidence of an air pollution effect on these lakes, we have to be able to factor out that natural variation from one lake to another. The only way to do that is to sample hundreds and hundreds of lakes across the park. And the only way to do that is actually to get in an airplane and get out to them. So until we had the air cam with its ability to get into small lakes, we really couldn't do this research.
The AirCam is a twin-engine airplane with a lot of power and a very large wing, which makes it possible for us to land on very small lakes. How many bottles do you have, Troy?
We've got about 18, we've got 16 lakes.
Okay, so we've got 2 spares at least. Clear.
So we'll do some initial analyses and processing of the samples today, but then the samples go back to the lab at the Institute, and this fall we'll get all the chemistry that we need on these waters. And then the real hard work comes from doing all the statistical analysis and modeling we need to do in order to understand why these lakes vary so much from one to another. But the first thing we always look for is the color of the lake. This is a very clear lake, low in the tannins and organic matter that flows in from the watershed. But lakes will vary from very clear to very brown, and that's part of the natural variation in Adirondack lakes. We will probably have sampled close to 500 lakes by the time we're done. And we'd like to get the sampling finished so that we can get onto the analyses and get these results into the hands of policymakers and people who manage these lakes. We've learned a lot about Adirondack watersheds in the course of this research, but what really stays with me is the truly wild character of the park. For years I've been hiking on trails and paddling on lakes around the park. I had expected that flying over the park would actually weaken my sense of wilderness, that everywhere I looked I'd be able to see roads and houses from the air. But the experience was just the opposite. The few roads and even the homes and towns scattered throughout the park almost disappear in this endless landscape of forests, sprinkled with lakes and wetlands connected by rivers.
The aircam became our magic carpet, giving us a unique opportunity to view the beauty of millions of acres of Adirondack forests and waters. The colors and patterns of the park inhabit our minds and convince us that the Adirondack Park is a very special place, and we were privileged to fly over it for 3 summers.